The Talkative Tree. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Linda Dodge. The Talkative Tree by Horace Brown Fife. Dang vines! Beats all how some plants have no manners. But what do you expect, when they used to be men? All things considered, the obscure star, the undetermined damage to the stellar drive, and the way the small planet's murky atmosphere defied precision scanners, the pilot made a reasonably good landing. Despite sour feelings for the space service of Haurtoz, Steward Peter Colin had to admit that the casualties might have been far worse. Chief Steward Slichow led his little command, lest two third-class ration keepers, thought to have been trapped in the lower hold, to a point 200 meters from the steaming hull of the Peace State. He lined them up as if on parade. Colin made himself inconspicuous. "Since the crew will be on emergency watches repairing the damage," announced the chief in clipped, aggressive tones, "I have volunteered my section for preliminary scouting, as is suitable. It may be useful to discover temporary sources in this area of natural foods." Volunteered his section, thought Colin rebelliously, like the supreme director of Haurtoz, being conscripted into this idiotic space fleet that never fights is bad enough without a tin god on jets like Slichow. Prudently, he did not express this resentment overtly. His well-schooled features revealed no trace of the idea, or of any other idea. The planetary state of Haurtoz had been organized some 15 light years from old Earth, but many of the homeworld's less kindly techniques had been employed. Lack of complete loyalty to the state was likely to result in a siege of treatment that left the subject suitably, "repersonalized." Colin had heard of instances wherein mere unenthusiastic posture had betrayed intentions to harbor treasonable thoughts. "You will scout in 5 details of 3 persons each," Chief Slichow said. "Every hour each detail will send me 1 person in to report, and he will be replaced by one of the 5 I shall keep here to issue rations." Colin permitted himself to wonder when anyone might get some rest, but assumed a mildly willing look. Too eager an attitude could arouse suspicion of disguising an improper viewpoint. The maintenance of a proper viewpoint was a necessity if the planetary state were to survive the hostile plots of Earth and the latter's decadent colonies. That, at least, was the official line. Colin found himself in a group with Jack Ammett, a third cook, and Eva Yurtuk, powdered food storekeeper. Since the crew would be eating packaged rations during repairs, Yurtuk could be spared to command a scout detail. Each scout was issued a rocket pistol and a plastic water tube. Chief Slichow emphasized that the keepers of rations could hardly, in an emergency, give even the appearance of favoring themselves in regard to food. They would go without. Colin maintained a standard expression as the chief's sharp stare measured them. Yurtuk, a dark, lean-faced girl, led the way with a quiet monosyllable. She carried the small radio they would be permitted to use for messages of utmost urgency. Ammett followed, and Colin brought up the rear. To reach their assigned sector, they had to climb a forbidding ridge of rock within a half a kilometer. Only a sparse creeper grew along their way, its elongated leaves shimmering with bronze-green reflections against the stony surface. But when they topped the ridge, a thick forest was in sight. Yurtuk and Ammett paused momentarily before descending. Colin shared their sense of isolation. They would be out of sight of authority and responsible for their own actions. It was a strange sensation. They marched down into the valley at a brisk pace, becoming more aware of the clouds and atmospheric haze. Distant objects seemed blurred by the mist, taking on a somber, brooding grayness. For all Colin could tell, he and the others were isolated in a world bounded by the rocky ridge behind them and a semicircle of damp trees and bushes several hundred meters away. He suspected that the hills rising mistily ahead were part of a continuous slope, but could not be sure. Urtok led the way along the most nearly level ground. Low creepers became more plentiful, interspersed with scrubby thickets of tangled, spike-armored bushes. Occasionally, small flying things flickered among the foliage. Once, a shrub puffed out an enormous cloud of tiny spores. "Be a job to find anything edible here," grunted Amit, and Colin agreed. Finally, after a longer hike than he had anticipated, they approached the edge of a deceptively distant forest. Urtuk paused to examine some purple berries glistening dangerously on a low shrub. Colin regarded the trees with misgiving. "Looks as tough to get through as a tropical jungle," he remarked. "I think this stuff puts out shoots that grow back into the ground to root as they spread," said the woman. "Maybe we can find a way through." In 2 or 3 minutes, they reached the abrupt border of the odd-looking trees. Except for one thick-trunked giant, all of them were about the same height. They craned their necks to estimate the altitude of the monster, but the top was hidden by the wide spread of branches. The depths behind it looked dark and impenetrable. "We'd better explore along the edge," decided Urtok. "Amit, now is the time to go back and tell the chief which way we're—" "Amit!" Colin looked over his shoulder. 50 meters away, Amit sat beside the bush with the purple berries, utterly relaxed. "He must have tasted some," exclaimed Colin. "I'll see how he is." He ran back to the cook and shook him by the shoulder. Amit's head lolled loosely to one side. His rather heavy features were vacant, lending him a doped appearance. Colin straightened up and beckoned to Urtok. For some reason, he had trouble attracting her attention. Then he noticed that she was kneeling. "I hope she didn't eat something stupid too," he grumbled, trotting back. As he reached her, whatever Urtok was examining came to life and scooted into the underbrush with a flash of greenish fur. All Colin saw was that it had several legs too many. He pulled Urtok to her feet. She pawed at him weakly, eyes as vacant as Amit's. When he let go in sudden horror, she folded gently to the ground. She lay comfortably on her side, twitching one hand as if to brush something away. When she began to smile dreamily, Colin backed away. The corners of his mouth felt oddly stiff. They had involuntarily drawn back to expose his clenched teeth. He glanced warily about, but nothing appeared to threaten him. "It's time to end this scout," he told himself. "It's dangerous. One good look and I'm jetting off. What I need is an easy tree to climb." He considered the massive giant. Soaring 30 or 40 meters into the thin fog and dwarfing other growth, it seemed the most promising choice. At first, Colin saw no way, but then the network of vines clinging to the rugged trunk suggested a route. He tried his weight gingerly and then began to climb. "I should have brought Urtuk's radio," he muttered. "Oh, well, I can take it when I come down, if she hasn't snapped out of her spell by then. Funny, I wonder if that green thing bit her." Footholds were plentiful among the interlaced lianas. Colin progressed rapidly. When he reached the first thick limbs, twice head height, he felt safer. Later, at what he hoped was the halfway mark, he hooked one knee over a branch and paused to wipe sweat from his eyes. Peering down, he discovered the ground to be obscured by foliage. "I should have checked from down there to see how open the top is," he mused. "I wonder how the view will be from up there." Depends on what you're looking for,